Hello, my name is Craig Smith. I'm the head of digital tech and creative at Stopgap, a recruitment company that has specialized in marketing for the past 27 years and is very much an agency with candidate experience at its core. This is now the fourth in a series of video interviews with the great and good in digital tech, where I'm speaking to leaders within the product and UX industry and asking them to share their experiences through the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Of equal importance, it's an opportunity to share insight into their own career journey and views on the market, so we can provide an online career mentoring platform for those either starting out in product or UX, or due to the current coronavirus, find themselves looking for their next role. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Ruth, Head of Product at Dr. Care Anywhere. Ruth is an active member of the product and UX community, being a mentor for Kickstart Global, an advisor to both MumShape and Mobile UX London, and has committed a great deal of her time to raising awareness for mental health issues affecting both parents and children. Ruth, thank you for joining me on my Recruitment for Good initiative. I've given a very brief overview of experience that in no way does it any justice whatsoever. Could you give us a deep dive into your current role, responsibilities and background?
Okay. Guten Tag, Ruth Guthoff-Recknagel, because my last name is really tricky to pronounce, so I'm going to be helpful here. So I'm head of product at Dr. Care Anywhere. And as a product team, we have the vision to enable you to manage your and your loved one's health effortlessly, quickly and appropriately. And these three things are super important. As a product team, we consist out of product management, analytics, UX, and interaction design, because you need that combination to actually build really, really powerful products. Our job is to drive from vision to execution, and we're looking into 4 steps when doing this. This is about valuable. Is it valuable to our customers? And keep in mind, our customers are actually patients. Desirable, valuable, desirable, go hand in hand. Viable, as in, does that make sense from a budget, a clinical approach, and will this have legs? Usability, making sure that things that we build are really, really easily usable. And then feasibility, as in we always want to be on the edge of the new tech, so we're constantly trying out new tech things. That brings me back to, I didn't tell you what Dr. Care Anywhere is actually doing. So we are a virtual GP, having now also bridged into secondary care. So what you can do with us is you can have an online consultation with a GP, which can happen within 20 minutes of you having gone through the onboarding. And then you can have a chat with a GP and they will help you. They will also be able now to, depending on who you're insured with, to then point you to diagnostics, which is a new pathway we've built, and I will tell you more about this later. Looking at my background, let's give you a little bit about where I'm coming from, and I think you detected by my last name already, I am German. So I've been lucky enough to work in the DACH area, which is Germany, Austria, Switzerland. I've spent 4 years in the US and then the past 10 years in the UK. I worked in all kinds of industries. Started off as in a boutique consulting company in the deregulated German market. So I've seen startups, greenfield, seen scale-ups. I also saw some screw-ups along the way. I've worked in home improvement. I worked in on-demand, and the last 3 to 4 years in health tech. One of the biggest learnings around all these is behavioral change drives business results. And I think this is what you can see. You need to understand your customers, but you also need to understand your internal behaviors, how you drive things to then improve them and make them better. That's my background.
Great, thank you. So obviously we during the introduction, we're talking about putting some content out there about coronavirus. Most of Europe has been in lockdown for the last 2 or 3 months. How has coronavirus affected you in your current role, and also the work that Dr. Care Anywhere have been doing and are continuing to do?
So we've spent quite a bit of time. I was telling you earlier about the bridge between primary and secondary care. So by the 1st of April, we were ready to launch this, which would enable then our doctors to send you to a hospital to get blood work done or scans done, to then have another consultation with us to hear about your results. And then Corona came, and so this new pathway we built, we couldn't fully use it because we couldn't send anybody to a hospital. So that was a shocker, because we spend quite a bit of time to really make sure that this new pathway would help you to get to manage your health effortlessly, quickly, and appropriately. We couldn't utilize it. Now that the lockdown is coming down a little bit, we see numbers rising, but for us that was a proper shocker, because we were ready to rock and roll, and just there was no way. On the other hand, I think we also were then, which I'm calling a fat funnel. So suddenly the demand rose dramatically. And so while our funnel might have been like this, it suddenly was much bigger. So the point which we had to address was also making sure that our systems are scaling with us. And so growth came to us overnight in a scary way, so to say. But let's see the positive. We were able to help people. We were able to help patients to become better and make them healthy again. So scary, but also really positive.
Okay. And a very difficult question, but what is your view as we come out of this on what the new normal will look like for tech businesses?
I think one of the things that is very clear, this is not normal, right? So this is not remote working, and because I, for example, have a 10-year-old downstairs who needs to be entertained, and so this is not normal. But I think what we will be doing is we will take some of the things we learned during remote working, we'll take them with us. So for example, we are now working much more asynchronously, so less meetings, less Zoom, because everybody just gets mad at Zoom. And we're trying to write things down and have more written communication, so people do not have to spend the entire day in Zoom meetings. And I think that there will be quite a few pieces that we take from that. I don't think we as a company will not all go back to the office. We will have the option of depending on who wants to go back. But in general, now this phase strengthened us in working remotely very efficiently.
Yeah, but I'm personally desperate to go back, and I think that this situation hopefully will give us the flexibility to have a balance. So for me, I think the ideal will be 1 or 2 days from home, 3 or 4 in the office as the new norm. As a German national living in London, what differences are you seeing from a tech and product perspective between the two countries?
This is an interesting one, because the Germans are a little bit scared of data, they're scared of digital, and a lot of the webinars or anything you see right now, they are reciting Churchill, say, never miss a good crisis, because now they're forced to use digital much more, and they're taking this as an opportunity to drive this forward. So compared to the UK, I think they're still a bit behind, but they're catching up, and they're catching up because they have to. And Germans under pressure use their effective and efficient thinking and get things done. So it's interesting to see how they try to be stepping up in the digital world quickly.
Okay. So Dr. Care Anywhere are absolutely at the front of tech for good. Okay. Has beyond that, have you, and I know that you have, or the wider company adopted any further corporate social responsibility initiatives throughout COVID-19 and the lockdown?
So for us, because if we want to enable people to manage their health, it's along the health journey, right? And so we need to make sure that within from child to adult to retirement, we need to have the right offering in place. And what we're currently doing is we're working on a really strong mental health proposition to really make sure that you get the appropriate help. Because people now see the opportunity when digital, and this will be GP-led, as in how can we help them even better. And we know that the life-impacting events like a coronavirus, or like moving, or if you have 2 or 3 of these within 6 months time, you will have a severe impact on your mental health, and we want to be there for you. So this is why we're diving into this area now.
And what else have you seen outside of your company that stands out from a tech for good perspective? What initiatives are you seeing that are addressing the current market uncertainty and helping people cope?
I think I kind of want to point out something that I'm doing with one of my colleagues and two other ones. So there's the Global Virtual Design Sprint. And this is when I initially stepped in there, this was about me learning how to run design sprints in a virtual way. And it was all about that learning. And so what it turned out to be, it was 4 people, 2 weeks, one common purpose, and we built a prototype. And that prototype, it's called actually the Happy Llama cards, is about helping parents and kids to think about their feelings, name their feelings, activities to help you feel different depending on where you want to go, and check in afterwards if that worked. So if Leah would be here, she could tell you all the psychology background around this, how powerful this is and why it's powerful. But this is something that we've done to do something good, but also to do some learning. So I would highly encourage to find these nuggets of people working internationally. So this is a team of 4. One is in Mexico, one is in Holland, and Leah and I are in the UK. And there is more of this out there, and I'm happy for you to connect with me via LinkedIn, because I'm constantly trying to connect people and make people see that there's plenty of opportunities to do these things that do good. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Is this Switchy Swap?
This is Switchy Swap. So Switchy Swap has been renamed, and as any product you build. So it's a paper game to start off with, because we want to make sure we can send this wherever in the world, and you will go and cut this out. And initially my son called it Switchy Swap, but with more user research, we found the Happy Llama a better name for it. And so now it's the Happy Llama.
Great. You mentioned it throughout this interview that you've spoke recently at the Mobile Growth Association. You gave us an insight into how the funnel is changing for Dr. Care Anywhere and for a lot of other companies. And you've previously used the hashtag retention is forever. Could you give us an insight into this? What do you mean by fat funnel? I know you've kind of touched on it, and what is meant by retention is forever?
So retention is forever. I stole it from Brian Belfour from Reforge. And I joined Reforge. I did a couple of programs there a few years back, and at the beginning it was all about growth hacking, and how do you make sure you distribute your products right. And that was important for me, because I knew how to do product, but I wasn't quite sure how to generate growth. But within the learnings within the last maybe couple years, everybody noticed that acquisition and growth is great, but what you need retention, because retention is forever. And retention has the 4 components, and it's that combined effort, and it's that output out of good acquisition, engagement, churn prevention, and resurrection. And you kind of need to work on all 4 of them to really make sure that you drive your retention forward. So for us, this means, for example, right now, we have this fat funnel. That means that many people are coming to us and we can help them. But we also need to think about how do we carry this forward, because that aha moment is when you had a consultation with our doctor and he either prescribed something or whatever they did. We need to make sure that that aha moment sticks with you and that we give you options to come back. So this is why, for example, I talked about the mental health proposition, and we have another few propositions we're going to put in place that you can keep managing your help with us effortlessly, quickly, and appropriately. And I think the importance is on the appropriately, where you want to generate that engagement and you want to make sure that they don't churn because you don't give them a reason to come back. So this is why retention is forever.
Got it. Now, in terms of providing some kind of guidance for candidates, as I said, either those starting out or those now finding themselves in a position where they need to be back in the market and looking for work, when you're building teams, when you're in hiring mode, what stands out for you? You know, what does good look like from a product or UX perspective when screening applications and interviewing people?
So product is all about storytelling. You need to have a good story that you share. You need to put some emphasis on analytics, and there needs to be empathy. So whenever we do any product presentation, we always talk about what's happening, why it's happening, what does good look like, and what does good look like, I mean, in an analytical way. What impact will it have, and what are the next steps? So when I do interviews, I'm trying to find that energy and that exploration interest and the learning interest, because this is super important. As a product person or anybody working with me in a product team, we are the glue between all the other business units. So we need to tell these engaging stories and help making prioritization to drive towards our vision. And that's super important. There is, especially for UX design, I think this is right now something that is becoming more and more important. And anybody who follows Jared Spool will know how important UX is within that product environment. So be a good storyteller, know your analytics, be empathetic, and learn. Which is currently so easy to do. There's so many options because everything is online, but I will tell you a little bit more about that. So that's what I'm looking for. Energy.
Okay, and how can that best come across in a portfolio or CV? So in fact, let me break that question down. Portfolio or CV, what's more important?
I can tell you how I interviewed before last year. So a Word document doesn't really work for me. So because it reflects who you are, right? So mine is colorful, it's bold, it's very different. It gives you like a timeline, some stories on the side. And I think for me that's it's not about just listing what you can do. It's also about how you present yourself. How do you turn this into a good story? And so for me, it's a combination. It's kind of like if you would do a presentation, how would you present yourself? Don't put it in a boring Word document. Make it energetic, put some highlights in there, and that will get you at least the first glimpse. And I think that's what we're after.
Right, fine. So Ruth, what advice can you give people that are looking for work currently and the competition is going to be huge to enhance their own brand? How can they stand out from the crowd in a very noisy marketplace?
I think for me, it's being authentic. So I'm connecting a lot on LinkedIn, listening to people, talking to people, giving feedback, and just being very much on the ball to see what's happening out there. And it's product and UX is all about being open and ready for adventure. And so I think right now, join in wherever you can. I've seen mentor offerings. I've seen quite a few pieces where people can do things for good also in these times. And I think that's what I would recommend. So the personal brand is about you being out there and telling your story. And once again, we're coming back to storytelling. I think that's what you can start. And I have quite a few people connecting with me over LinkedIn saying, you might not have a job right now, but can I follow you because there might be something in for me to learn. And I think that's what I would encourage.
Okay. I think a lot of people obsess about the presentation of the portfolio, which is really important, but often at the expense of the method behind what they've achieved. So I just want to wrap that around the question that I was going to finish with, but it seems a good time to ask now. Is design about beauty?
No, and you know what? I'm going to try and see if I can grab it. This is the way I, for example, last year did my interviews.
Wow.
So I used post-its because everything I'm doing is about being really, really visual and really, really engaging. So then I came up with, what do I think my USPs are? What did I do? So telecommunication, home improvement, healthcare, and then what are some of the things I've done? And that creates a story. If you go into an interview with this, suddenly people will talk about this, and it's much more engaging than having a CV there. And it's not about beauty, it's about facilitating to tell a story and to get to a goal. So this is what worked for me during interviewing time. It's also, when you put this up, you need to be very clear about what do you think your USPs are? What has been your journey? And suddenly the story you tell has much more life and is more authentic. There we go.
So, it's not all about living in the digital age. You can go analog as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. How important is chemistry and culture fit? And how can a candidate get this across in the interview process? I think now that we're going to be Zooming a lot more, and there's going to be video interviews, I think it's much easier to convey that perhaps than a telephone call can. And you've spoken about that, on a portfolio aspect, but one of the biggest causes for rejection is culture fit.
See, I'm not after culture fit. I'm actually after culture add, because what I need is, so we operate on everybody learns and needs to multiply that along. So everybody in the product team has their personal OKRs, which is about an objective they set themselves, and then key results they want to achieve, because we all want to learn new things. So hiring for me means that you bring in people that can enrich the entire team. So it's not necessarily that fit, it's more the how can you get more energy in there, or is there anything that you can share with the others? And that is very different from trying to fit in, but it's more about leading, because product is always a little bit about leading and people to achieve greater good. So have a think about what you can actually add. What can you bring, rather than trying to fit in? Because nobody will get away with not being able to work in a team. As a product person or a UX person, you need to be able to work in a team. Remotely is now a given. So what else is it that you can add to bring your team forward and to enrich the culture?
Okay. And one quick question about recruitment. Is there any kind of common theme of frustration? What are the barriers for you to building great teams?
I haven't recruited in this setting, but usually the barriers is people not being authentic, people not being daring to really tell their story, because this is an opportunity where you need to tell the best about you. And this is, I think, actually why I built this, because sometimes in an interview you're very, very nervous and you might forget. So one of the things I'm doing after every interview, I ask them, how do you think you've done? Is there anything you think you could have done better? Because sometimes in the rush of things you forget, but then when you go back, you're like, you know what? That one was a stupid answer. Can I tell you what I'm thinking right now? And I think it's more about having that communication going back and forth, rather than to be able to within 5 minutes present yourself in the best way. And I think that's what I'm after. So as a candidate, if you feel like you've not done the best, right away ping a message saying, you know what, I think now thinking about this, that answer I would want to change, because this is what I really think about it. And that's how we will cross the barrier of not being able to speak to each other face to face. It's going to be via Zoom, which means a lot of the a lot is going to get missing. So try to encourage that exchange of information, if that makes sense.
And I think a lot of people lack confidence in the interview process. They're scared to be themselves. They're scared to relax in case they come across as, they comes across as antipathy. And I also think that the number of people actually are in hiring positions are rubbish at interviewing themselves, and it's conducted on a very linear basis. And I think the best interviews are those that are conversational, that are discussive. So you shouldn't bank all your questions for the end. You as an interviewee, there should be an element of interviewing as well. Why is this company good for you? You have to ask questions about the company, the objective, to know that you're the right person for it.
When I do face-to-face interviews, you can see maybe I have a box of Lego out there. So I usually have something to play with, because that suddenly will relax everything. And if people do not open the Lego box, I'm already suspicious, because most people at least ask, or then ask if they can open it. English are a bit more polite. The Germans will just go and play with it. And I think that's kind of the curiosity I want to see. And I haven't quite figured out yet how I would do this online, but I think this is it. You need to start that conversation, and suddenly you will get much better answers, and you will really know, is there a culture add? Yeah, so I agree with you. It needs to be an exchange. But still, even if I just chat to you and afterwards I'm thinking, that was not a good answer, go and contact the interviewer and tell them, you know what, I think that wasn't right.
Oh, and I love what you said. Also, put it back at the put it right at the end of the interview. You know, there's countless times where you've given an answer that you're not convinced by, and it throws you off guard, or you weren't expecting the question. But throughout the course of the conversation, you may have a different point of view, a different take on it. Go back there and then if you have the opportunity to.
And like I said, I asked at the end, because I think during the interview, you usually already develop a feeling if you've done well or not. So I asked them, do you think you've done well? Do you think there's anything? Because that sometimes triggers also, you know what, I could have done this better. And that's what it's all about, because it's not about having, you don't build a product that is 100% right away. You iterate, you make it better. And that's the same thing with how I approach interviews.
Okay. You're a serial contributor to the UX and product community. What books, podcasts, events, webinars, or virtual meetups these days would you recommend for people in the industry?
So you can see my bookshelf in the back, and you can see there has lots of new things have been added. And there is even a LinkedIn posting where I took a picture of the bookshelf and then ask everybody, what am I missing? So quite a few new ones have been added. But I think what I want to point out, podcasts. So I love The Secret Leaders because there has always some really, really interesting people, and Dan is amazing. On UX, I follow Jared Spool because he puts a lot of content out there and really drives us forwards. In books, I also, apart from having all of these, I also listen to Blinkist a lot, because sometimes I just need to figure out a few nuggets to then see if that book is worth buying and then properly reading. Don't like to read books on a tablet, so I noticed, so this is why now I have all these there. There's some really interesting OKR meetups in Germany that are now also in English, and I'm happy to connect you to that. Would recommend the Product Tang Mobile UX. And there's a lot happening right now, and I'm happy to guide you because I post them on LinkedIn as well. Because there's so much right now. We are in a position where we can actually choose, because we don't have time to join all of it. So happy for you to follow me on that. And I could try to zoom in onto my bookshelf over there, but I'm not quite sure because I'm tangled up there.
You have you've posted a picture on LinkedIn,
yeah.
Of some of the books that you have back there, right? Okay, perfect. What do you think are the biggest trends in UX and product design right now, and how do you see it evolving? And I know we spoke about this beforehand, and I said I wouldn't ask it of you, but I did. Sorry.
That's okay. I think so what I currently see is there's a lot of movement towards the design sprints and facilitating remotely. And that is super important. And like I said, Leah and I, we joined the Global Virtual Design Sprint to learn even more, because you sometimes need input from others. So I can see that the design sprints and spin-off of the design sprints will help product, but also UX to drive things forward. Through this Global Virtual Design Sprints, I learned about prototyping, something that I wasn't really aware of. And there is Alberto Savoia, who did who wrote a really interesting book about it. I think those are the things that I currently can see coming forward, because the big point is that we need to find at a very, very early stage if something is valuable for us, for our patients, but anybody else. So it's this valuable, and how do you find that out before you even start with the prototyping pieces? And so those are the trends I currently see.
Okay. I've seen, particularly within the startup community, there's been more of a clamour for true UI and UX hybrids. Conversely, I've also seen that there is a huge part of the industry that push against that don't think it's the right model, or there's particularly much value in it, citing the fact that your hybrid is neither good at one nor the other, which is very unfair. Is this a model that you believe in? And have you ever met a true hybrid?
As I said earlier, so we have a UX designer and we have interaction designers, because I think it's two art forms. I haven't seen many being able to do both. So either way would be fine for me, but I haven't just seen people mastering both on the level I would hope for. But maybe it's also an overall learning, because, so for example, UX wasn't a topic 10 years ago, becomes more and more important. Analytics came in, and I think maybe there's also an upskilling on all levels to go into that direction, but currently I don't quite see it yet.
Okay. And a question that's just occurred to me: how do you ensure that you keep the user at the heart of your product?
That's a good one also to add at the top. There is Teresa Torres, who talks about continuous discovery. And that's something that we're now implementing, because we need to make sure that we're not only looking at our analytics and look at our session replays and looking at all these pieces. We need to talk to our patients. And this is something that we're now doing much more of, to make sure that what we're building, actually to now even make sure that before we even build anything, that there is this WTP, willingness to pay, because that's a really good indicator to see if there is interest, because a lot of people say, yeah, sure, I will buy it. But once you have it out there, they don't really want to pay for it. So this is something that we dive into. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Yes. So prototyping, and now also design sprints where we do user testing, to make sure that we do the right experiments, to figure out that also if we found that the patient is interested, how do we make sure it's usable and feasible for us? So lots about design sprints, and then user testing, and then looking at analytics at the end. There we go. Sorry.
Well, recovers. I can edit it. It's fine. Or someone else can. Anyway, what are the biggest mistakes UX and product designers can avoid?
Not to talk to their customers, because I think this is, and then I think especially in the startup area, what you see often is that sales will just go out and sell things, and then product needs to keep up. But because they just need to keep up, they can't really do the right things at the right time. And over the years, we've become really good at executing. Every company, or the most companies, are good at actually delivery. But that discovery work is super important, and that's something that you need to carry in your company. And I think there's quite a few UX majority models in there which are helpful within any company to make sure that you actually avoid the mistakes.
Okay. And what are the biggest mistakes companies make when adopting a UX strategy?
Not adapting UX strategy, thinking that they know it best, and so when I first started at DCA, Dr. K Anywhere, I said, it's not about what you think. It's actually about what our customers think. And for us, it's interesting because we have patients as customers, we have doctors as customers, we have specialists as customers, and we have PX teams, patient experience teams as customers. And they're all very different. And you really need to properly understand what they feel and will them help. So I think that's the biggest mistake you can do, is you think you know it all.
Okay. And finally, what advice would you give yourself when starting out in your career, if you had the opportunity to do that?
Go crazy, go and explore, go and learn as much as you can. You will not be mastering everything, but I think it's important that you understand a bit of analytics, you understand a little bit about UX, you understand a little bit about managing and leading. And I think that you need to have seen all of this to then choose. So for example, our interim head of product, he was product, he then jumped into UX, stepped into product, is now back in UX, because he knows he loves this UX space much more than he likes the product space. But you only can do that if you're there to jump between. And I think anybody, if you're a good storyteller, everybody will be really inspired by you telling the story. You know what, tried this, now I want to evolve. And I think that's what I would do if I would start fresh now. And I'm still doing this, I'm still learning. So I'm joining now, the next one I'm joining is a storytelling class, because I think I can do better with storytelling. And then there is something about empowering teams. So keep learning, because it doesn't stop.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating. What I'm going to do is post the video. In addition to that, I'd like to share your profile, a link to your LinkedIn, because it's full of absolutely amazing content. You can look at the books that Ruth has recommended, the links to the Global Design Sprint, and I'm sure that, and also to Dr. Care Anywhere, which are doing some amazing work as well. And I'm sure that you'll be happy to interact and respond to anyone that seeks help.
Absolutely, yes. It's all about learning from each other. So yes, bring it on.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for your time, Ruth, and take care.
Thank you. Auf Wiedersehen.
See ya.